Welcome to Life of Worship. We're so glad that you've joined us here in the house and all of our family all over the world. We are blessed to have a divine appointment with the King together. And this amazing service through the tour portion and worship, it's going to continue, I believe, with a message that um, hurts a little bit probably to each and every one of us, but it's necessary. And anyway, I want everybody to turn to the scripture of John 15:2. We actually discussed it a little bit in tour portion already. I told you guys we were stepping on my notes. But if you've been a believer for very long, if you believe in Yeshua, even if you believe in Jesus, whichever word you use, you're going to know that you are compared to a tree, a plant, and a vine over and over. And consequently, because of that, there are things that have to happen to trees and plants and vines. That's called pruning. That's fruit bearing. Uh, that is going to bring life or death to the plant, to the tree, and to the vine. And so John 15:2 says, "Every branch in me not bearing fruit, he takes away, and each one bearing fruit, he prunes so that it may be more fruit." Okay, takes away. Do you guys ever really think about that? And I hear over and over, even today, somebody was discussing with Tammy about being taken away and a rapture and things like that. And people don't understand taken away is not a good thing in scripture. They've related it, oh, one was taken. Oh, that's great. No, taken away means you're no longer under his protection. In the flood, were they taken away or were they protected? We see in the Exodus, were they taken away or were they protected in his place, in his place that he made? So being taken away is pretty serious. But he says, if you're not bearing fruit, he's going to take you away. Huh. Wow. If you don't bear fruit, it's it. Have you ever thought about that for your own life? Am I bearing fruit? Am I doing and being what he's called me to be? Well, you can't say that, well, I'm a little here and I'm a little there. It just doesn't work because you can't do one thing and another both at the same time. You're serving one master. You're either serving him all in or you're serving the enemy in one form of capacity mixed with a little bit of your own mixture. But Yah is good all the time. And though these words seem harsh, are they really that harsh? It's really terrifying in its simplicity because without him, how can we make it? It says if we're not abiding in him, how can we make it? How can we bear fruit? Well, let's look at this word ero, meaning to carry off. And it's easy to understand. You're carried off, ero. Yeshua said that the branches are where? They're in him, right? Well, it means that at one point, this person that's being taken away and sent to the fire or being taken away, however it is, was one time serving Yeshua, was one time a believer, was one time serving the kingdom, and something switched. They got lazy. They stopped getting in their word. They stopped following his ways. They started compromising here, compromising there. And now they don't bear fruit and they're cut off. We each need to examine our own life to see where we are in that perspective. Are we where we're supposed to be? Are we in jeopardy and might be cut off because of our own attitude, our own actions, or lack thereof, because we are too busy to spend time with him, because we're too busy to spend time in the word, because we have our own agendas, we have our own way of doing things instead of following his way in all things. So are we there? Are we still there? Are we where we're supposed to be? Because this person who's being taken away, something happened. The normal process of growth didn't occur any longer, and there was no fruit produced. But what does that mean? Well, Shaul gives us a pretty good description of fruit when he lists the fruits of the Spirit, right? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control, right? But these are normal. This is what's supposed to be in our lives. This is supposed to be how we relate to each other. This is supposed to be what comes out of us. Pastor John asked the question, how do we bear fruit today? Well, how do we? How do we show that we are part of the kingdom? Are there things in us that are absent, deficient? Are we lacking in love? Are we lacking in mercy? Are we lacking when we speak to one another in tolerance? Not saying tolerate sin, but saying love them no matter where they're at. Or do we judge and make excuses why we don't need to interact with them when we're in congregation because they're not as good as me. Like any of us are good. All of us fail in that comparison, don't we?
Yes.
So, are we deficient? Are we going to be cut off or taken away? Ask yourself that question. Because if your life isn't progressively showing more and more fruits of the Spirit, if you are not following in Him, if you're not following His commands, all of them, then you are in danger of being taken away. You are in danger of being cut off. And what do you do to the dead branches usually? You burn them in the fire. Are you being consigned to the fire? So we need to take a really big look at our attitude towards one another, our actions, our thought process. Yeah, even our thoughts. How do we think? Are we thinking life? Do we think death? I know we were talking about, again, the water today, that our bodies are made up of mostly water, and words of life and following Him in His way, but especially words and thoughts create crystals that are beautiful and wonderful and smooth and work in our bodies. But when there's death, whether we're listening to it, whether we're thinking about it, whether we're speaking it, I looked at a molecule of water that somebody said, this makes me sick, or you make me sick, or something. And the molecule of water was so distorted and ugly. Well, guess what's happening within us? It's death. It's death, because we need an attitude adjustment. We need to watch what we say. We need to watch what we do. Maybe we need to prune how we think. Maybe we need to prune our behavior and our attitude and how we perceive this life. Are we really living it for Yah, or are we living it for self? Are we getting so consumed with the things of the world and the busyness of the day and the obligations that we fail to give our day to Him, to live for Him, and to be truly a part of the vine? And thus, because of everything that's required, we make the excuses and not get with Him. And before we know it, we're far away from Him, and you've got to be cut off and burned. Ouch. See, the active branches too, there's pruning involved. How many of you felt pruned? Yeah, me too. Because even if you're producing fruit, expect it. Because He's going to remove the branches that interfere with the maximum production.
Yep.
Those are gone.
Get ready.
Do you ever wonder why bad things happen to people? Because if you're virtually connected to the vine, pruning is the normal means of improving your productivity, of improving your fruit bearing, of improving and molding and making you who you're supposed to be. So is pruning really a bad thing? No. It's not. Pruning's not a bad thing at all. In fact, you might lose your job. You thought it was the answer. You thought it was your security, but maybe that's not the job you're supposed to be in. You might experience a natural disaster. Why? Because there's pruning that needs to happen. And how do those things rise to the surface? Through heat and pressure. And when the heat or pressure's on, how do we act? How do we act towards one another? How do we act? How do we think? How do we respond? Maybe it's the loss of a loved one. Maybe it's a health crisis. Maybe it is a legal crisis. No matter what it is, Yah is sovereign through all of it. And consider it pruning. Oh, ouch, He's pruning me. Do you think putting shears to a branch hurts? If we were a tree, I wonder what it would say. If we were a plant, I wonder what it would say. Because I don't think cutting anything off would be comfortable. But He says in His word in James, what does He say? Do you remember? Count it all joy.
Yes.
When you face trial,
yes,
and when you face tribulation. Because that's confidence in Yah. That's confidence that the vine dresser, that's confident that the master is doing a work within you. And those things aren't supposed to be there in the first place. Now, let me tell you, I would much rather be pruned to bear better fruit than be taken off because I've gone my own way, doing my own thing. And I once was there, but I'm not there anymore. And guess what? It's reflective in your actions and your attitude, how you think, how you speak, and how you respond to people. So, with a confident declaration, Yah knows me because I'm being pruned. Hallelujah. Yeah, everybody shout. Yeah. So, Yah's pruning in your life's good. It's painful, but it's good. And it's necessary to end some of those things. Maybe it's necessary to end those thoughts and the way you think. Maybe it is necessary, actually, to change the way you speak, to end that attitude, that negative attitude, that criticism. That lack of time for Him needs to end. That lack of modeling Messiah, Yeshua, the word to your children, to your family, to your friends, to your neighbors, it needs to end. That lack, those excuses that you keep making for whatever you're making them for, that needs to end. It needs to be cut off of your life. And sometimes you have to be willing to do it.
Yes.
God's already told you, but you're not willing to end it because it's comfortable where you're at. But it must stop. If you're going to live the life that He's called you to live, you've got to stop and be thrown into the fire. No more compromise. But there's more essential endings in your life. There's more pruning that needs to be done that maybe you need to look at. And for many different reasons, scientific reasons. And we're going to look at that because those things, if we're to become who He's called us to be, we need to take an honest look at our life, the way we think, the way we act, even the things that are in it, the people we're around. Maybe there's an essential ending that needs to come your way so that we can grow, so that we can be who we're supposed to be. The Word tells us how to live every part of our lives. It tells us how to raise our kids, our children. It tells us how to serve Him. It tells us how to worship. It tells us how to sacrifice, how to praise Him. It tells us what to eat. It tells us who to fellowship, how to fellowship. It tells us how to govern our finances, how to build relationships. And it tells us how to end relationships. It tells us how to be witnesses, and it tells us to prune our lives. The words in Scripture, think about it. Those words are Yeshua. So those words matter. If we've read them, if we hear them, those are Yeshua. Those things are going to bring forth life. They're truths. That's the Word. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And He's going to show us how to prosper in His kingdom. And it's going to involve pruning.
Yeah.
It's going to involve essential endings, necessary endings in your life. Ouch. Well, think about this. Has anybody ever looked at the sky? What do you see up in the sky? Well, hopefully not chemtrails.
Clouds.
Clouds. Have you ever seen a cloud? Okay. Besides on the Exodus, that just stands still and never moves.
No.
They move.
Well, some of them stop. But
God's moving.
yes.
He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. But He's the one that creates the new things. He's the one that moves us along the way because stagnant water is death. There's no life in it. It's death. So He's moving, and He's moving us to a better place. He's constantly trying to mold us and make us and shape us because Yah wants us to grow and move into what He's called us to be, to fulfill the purposes for which He's called us. He wants your attention. He wants my attention, and He's trying to call you to a new and a better thing. But we keep holding on to the past, thinking, no, I'm going to cling to that thing. I'm going to cling. I'm going to cling. I'm not going to let go. And He says, if you don't let go, I can't take you where you're supposed to be. But it involves change. If we're women, we are not comfortable with change. Change, we don't. If there's change, that's a 4-letter word in a woman's vocabulary. We don't want it. But guess what? We all need to know that change is coming because He's pruning. It may mean something big and huge that's very obvious, or it could be a lot more subtle. It may mean without changing the context, but you need to do things in a new and a better way. Because Yah wants you to grow. He wants you to learn. He wants us to go to a better place in life, in our families, raising our families, in our businesses, in our congregation, in our surroundings. In every way, He wants us moving and growing. And also making disciples of all nations. But guess what? It's going to involve pain because you're going to leave something behind. He's always calling us to something, but you may have to leave something behind. Maybe those things seem good, but really, maybe they're not so good for us. There's a million ways. He's whispering, hey, come down this path with me, because down this path, we're going to reach the goal of rest, which is Yeshua. How many of you have an easy time letting things go? I cannot raise my hand on that. I have a hard time letting go of everything. People and friends, not stuff, but things that matter. People and visions and dreams. But I think if y'all know me, I would say people is my hardest thing. Would you guys agree with that? People's my hardest thing to let go of. Because I just want everybody around me all the time, forever and ever and ever. Even if they're not good for me, right?
Yes, exactly.
That's the problem. It's difficult to let go of something because you're invested in it. You put time, and you put energy, and you put thought, and you put prayer, and you put things into this, whatever it is, you're invested in it. And to let go, are you sure, y'all? Are you sure you want me to let go of that thing because you called me to it?
Yep.
Maybe He did, but there's a season. Maybe it's a strategy you've got to let go of, or maybe it's actually a person or a business or other activities in your life. Maybe it's the way you're thinking and acting that you need to let go of.
That's good.
Maybe it's friends that are not of like mind and like kind that you need to let go of. Maybe it's something, yes, that you were once called to, but he has a new season for you in your life. You fill in the blank, whatever it is. There may be an essential, necessary ending in your life that needs to happen, or many. But it's hard. It's really, really hard. Now, I'm going to ask you, how many of you guys like to keep your stuff? Do you like stuff and to keep your stuff?
Oh, yes.
In fact, you might need it, right?
Antiques.
Yeah, I might need that. I know that I've gone through seasons where I just get rid of things, and then I'm like, a couple years later, I'm like, I really wish I wouldn't have done that. Now I have to invest more money and more time and more energy. So I'm one who I like to purge, but then I find if I purged it, I end up needing it later. And so, it's a mixture. But you can be one of those hoarders, right? Right? You can be and hoarder's a little strong word, but you like to keep your stuff. And then you got to find a place to put your stuff, right? Don't deny everybody, you might have a stuff problem, right? Or maybe you're one of those organized people, and you look at somebody and you're like, I can help them organize their stuff. I have that. Like, I'll walk into somebody's yard, or I do that, and I'm like, oh, I can help them. I would love to come out here and help them. Of course, in what time, right? I would love to do that. Oh, I could, has anybody ever there, do we have any organizers in the house?
Usually.
Yeah. Well, have you ever caught yourself, I could help them with that.
I would do my sister's room.
Yes, there you go. I can help them with that. So really, the organizer is helping the hoarder. Or maybe you're one and the same. I don't know. But whatever it is, we hang on to things because we have this idea that letting go is going to create a problem in our life. Even things. Sometimes it's attachment. Sometimes it's fear. Who knows? Maybe the organizers there helping the hoarder, and you find this thing. When was the last time you used this? 25 years ago? But I got to keep it. I might need it. Or you see this thing and you say, oh, what is this? Oh, it's Sally Sue's poopy diaper. Well, Sally Sue is 40 years old now, and I think it's time to get rid of it because it stinks. Let go. It's beyond stink. Let go. We need to remember that we're not given a spirit of fear, but a power and a love and a sound mind. And he's got something better for you, but we've got to let go. We've got to declare that thing needs pruned from our life, that there's an essential ending to something or some things or many things in our life. Yash, pruning. But he prunes in many different ways, several different ways, actually. John 15:5 says, I'm the vine and you are the branches. He who abides in me, we sang that, and I in him bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. What can you do without him?
Nothing.
Because he is the source, right? Even for those that are producing good fruit, you are going or have been or will continue to get pruned. Everybody say, I'm getting pruned.
Get pruned.
Yeah. We've got to get rid of stuff so that we can have the better stuff that he wants for us. We've got to move those things out of our lives so there's room for the new. On the other side, remember, you get cut off. Which do you prefer? Now, I want us to think about science, vineyard planting, plant science. Now, if you go to, I heard this story about a great winemaker. He had won the best wine in like a huge area for many years in a row. And this guy wanted to say, tell me about how to grow these vines. Talk to me about pruning the vines. And he starts off and he leads them through the vineyard. And he wasn't talking about pruning. He was like, hey, man, why are you not talking about this? He says, you don't understand. Pruning doesn't happen first because to prune, you've got to have vision first. This is step one. You might see that tomato bush, that grapevine, or something else, and it needs that bush that's in your yard, that hedge, and it needs pruned. But you can't just go in willy-nilly and just start cutting. You have to have vision for what needs pruned. Maybe we need vision for what needs pruned in our own life. We're looking at the problem. It's overgrown. It's taken over my house. There's whatever it is, and instead of looking at what it's supposed to be, we're just looking at the issues at hand. Look at your life as what it's supposed to be, not just the issues at hand. You've got to identify the problem. Yes, that's good. But the vintner says it starts with vision.
Yes.
Do you have vision? Have you lost your vision? Have you lost that dream? Is it there? Does it need restored? Maybe so. Because when you start with the vision, you can see what you're supposed to look like in 10 years. That guy who owns the vineyard, he sees what that vineyard's supposed to look like 10 years from now. What does your life look like 10 years from now? What's your children's or your family's life supposed to look like 10 years from now? You're supposed to, the guy who owns the vineyard says you do that with every vine. So with everything in our life, our job, what's it look like 10 years from now? Our children, what do they look like 10 years from now? Our congregation, what does it look like 10 years from now? You name something. Our marriage, what's it supposed to look like 10 years from now? Because you need to prune to that situation. You need to prune to that vine in that way. You've got to see the ideal so that you can prune rightly. You have to, don't just prune. However, you prune towards something. I'm going to say that again. You prune towards something. So look at your life. What do you want your health to look like? Are you working and eating that way and living away so your health will look this way in 10 years? Your marriage. What are you doing so your marriage will look this way in 10 years? Your career, your ministry. We have to have vision for what we're trying to build. And the next question we've got to ask is, what exists right now that doesn't fit the future? What in your life, what pattern in your life, what things in your life, what thought processes in your life are it that do not fit in the future you, the future family, what God's called you to do? Because that's going to be key to a lot of what you're doing. What are you involved in right now that shouldn't be there? How are you behaving right now? And you know that you shouldn't be doing it. You can make all the excuses in the world, but between you and y'all, you're not supposed to be acting that way or doing those things. What is it that you're doing that if it doesn't end, you won't go to where you need to go? Maybe your kids in 10 years will be messed up because you won't change that behavior, because you won't do what's right. You won't raise them up and bring forth the word. You won't father and mother them, or your grandfather, grandmother them as they're supposed to. What are you eating because it's killing you? What attitude is destroying relationships or causing you never to have friends? What thing financially is breaking you because you refuse to tithe?
That's good, yes.
Because let me tell you, you're under a curse if you're not doing it.
That's
So
right.
don't expect financial blessing and y'all to be breaking through because you just tied his hands, because you don't.
Testing.
You won't get into your word, so eventually you're taken out. That's got to change. You have bad relationships, you're unequally yoked. The pruning needs to begin. So next, what about a rose bush? Is it the same way? Well, you ask them and they say the same thing. To produce this champion rose, you've got to find out what that champion rose is supposed to look like, what the ideal looks like. Because the rose bush is going to create far more buds than it can sustain in life. So think about that. Good, healthy buds, but they really don't need to be there if you're going to reach the ideal. Good, healthy things in your life, they look good, they seem nice, but unless those things are pruned out of your life, you can't reach the ideal. Man, it hurts to get rid of healthy looking branches, but they're not the best. And they're using the resources of your life so that the champion rose can't come, so that the champion wine can't come, because other things are pulling the resources out of those vines, out of that plant, out of that tree, that need to go towards something else. They may be good, but they're not the ideal. What would become of your life if the very best of your life had the resources which you're pushing somewhere else? What would become of that plant, of that vine, if the right resources that are sucking the life away from this other area were geared towards that area?
He's first.
I think about our peach tree. Now, John doesn't know this, but since I was doing this, I also found out a little bit more about a peach tree. We finally got to experience the peaches, eat them, because our peach tree is circumcised. Whole nother message, guys. Yes, you do circumcise trees. Yeah, don't picture it's different. Yes, but it is called that. And I looked at our tree, and our tree is so tall, and the fruit is huge compared to the other trees around the neighborhood. And it was big, and it was so good. But I looked at our tree, and our tree is tall. It's a lot taller than everybody else's. Well, I found out that tree is great, and it's beautiful. It's healthy looking. But if you want the tree to bush out and bear more fruit, we're going to have to top the tree.
Oh, fun.
I'm like, I have to top my tree? It's healthy. It looks pretty, just the way it is. It's rising up and soaring into the sky. But we're going to have to cut it off because our goal isn't the rising, soaring leaves and branches. Our goal is for the tree to bear fruit.
Yeah.
Ugh, that's going to be a hard cut. John has to do it. Anyway, so we want our peach tree to bear fruit. Maybe we want our lives to bear fruit, but we become so high and lofty that it's unattainable for the normal person to even eat it. Yet we had peaches this year, and they were so high I couldn't reach them. We had to get a ladder out. Well, that's unattainable fruit. Has your fruit become unattainable because you grew really fast and you're high and lofty in a place that you're no earthly good because you're so heavenly minded, right?
Yeah.
Pruning. Cut that top off. Ouch. The point is there needs to be an abundance of fruit, and it should be within the reach of all those around you. Is your life and the things in your life and the things he's called you to do, is it in reach for others around you? Or are you high and lofty where you're unreachable, unattainable? By this, my Father is glorified, that you may bear much fruit, so you will be my disciples, John 15:8. We've got to be accessible to one another. The goal may be accomplished, but there are times when it is necessary for the tree, for the person, for the congregation, et cetera, name it, your job, your family. There's times when it has to be pruned. It's painful, but it's necessary for growth in your life so that you can mature, so that your fruit can prosper. But there's another kind of pruning. So here we are, pruning healthy things. Ouch, that hurts. But there's pruning sick things too.
Yep.
There's things that you've been working on. Well, let's just talk about plants. We'll do that. I have a plant. Well, I have several tomato plants that have hurting, but one this year went and talked to the garden guy. He says, it's just fungus. Just spray it. It's going to be fine. I was like, it just looks pretty. And he said, just spray it and be consistent. It's going to be fine. So I sprayed it, and it just kept looking terrible. I sprayed it some more, and it looks terrible. And several weeks down the road, it should have already happened. I was like, okay, this is not happening. This tomato looks terrible, and I'm afraid it's spreading. And he said it shouldn't spread, but it's just not happening. It's sickly. And finally, you know what I did? John was out in the yard with me. So it was on a first day of the week. It was on a Sunday. We know that. I said, John, I'm cutting this thing off. And it's like this. And I reached over. I got the scissors or the shears, and I went boom, boom. And I cut every branch down to about this. I was like, I'm going to get the rest later. I'll go back in there and because there was nothing. There was no leaves. I just cut it down. Guess what's happening on that?
Growing leaves.
It's growing leaves, and they're healthy.
Yay.
I had to cut the dead stuff off. And I know we cut dead stuff off all the way in other areas too. In all the garden, I do that all the time I'm out there. But guys, what is dead? What is dying? And what is sickly in your life, or sickly in the things that you're doing, in your old vision, in your old dreams? What is not prospering as it should be? It needs to be cut off or removed. What needs to be pruned? It's not going to no matter how much we try, no matter how much we hope. Hope can be an issue here because we keep hoping it's going to get better. And folks, it's already been called. The door's been closed, and we keep holding on. Now, I know this. Here's something. John and I, we were basically assistant pastoring in a congregation a long time ago and filling in for a pastor who was gone. So we had a lot of responsibility, youth and worship, and just a lot of things that we had to do. And both of us started saying, is this season over? The pastor was finally back. And I'm like, no, let's just, I know there's a little tension, but let's just wait it out. let's just wait it out and wait it out. And this went on and on. We were waiting it out, even though it's just our spirit just didn't feel quite right about it. Well, we waited it out long enough where y'all said, okay, John, Sandy, you're not going to move when I told you to move. I'm going to kick you out.
You'll do that too.
And it got to the place where we had to leave. We had to leave. Now, if we would have listened and pruned that thing out of our life, that sick, deadly, that's not deadly, but that sickly thing that was once good, it was once good, it was once healthy, but it was time to go.
Past.
We wouldn't have had that experience, and it would have been much better just to leave that way, right? How many of you wait too long to cut things off, to cut things out, even though they're sickly, right? You keep hoping above hope, but you don't want to throw it away. You don't want to let it go. And then there's just dead branches. There's third category. Dead branches are dead branches, and they're just taking up space. They're ruining the vision of what the master's trying to do in your life. How many dead branches? You have sickly branches and you have dead branches in your life. They need to go. Good branches need to go. Now, Ecclesiastes 3:1-8, if you guys want to turn there. Because we need to identify seasons in our life, identify things in our life that keep us from being who he's called us to be. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to gain, a time to lose, a time to keep, a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak, and a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. If you don't remember that, you probably, let every season turn. Yeah, we can go to that from Pete Seeger from 1959.
Wow.
Who basically just wrote Ecclesiastes into a song. Everything there is a season.
Yeah, dang.
Now, when you look at these things, being born and planting and things, those are good things, right? They're good things. It's good to be born. Sometimes it's good to go home to be with the Father, too.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's take off this fleshly garment. There's a time to plant. But what's been planted, what are you planting in your life? What has Yah told you to plant, and what have you just been planting on your own?
That's good.
Good question. Did Yahweh tell you to plant that? It's a good thing, but did Yah tell you to plant it? Because if he didn't tell you to plant it, you're going to have to uproot it. Ouch. We like to grow things. We like to build things. And we have good intentions, but sometimes those things we're not called to do. We're walking in positions and places where we're not supposed to be. A time to tear down and a time to build. See, at some point, it's time to uproot the good things because it's a new season. Now, when you think about tear down and building, you think that building comes first, right? Building comes first and then you tear it down. Not necessarily, because if there's something old, it has to come down. Think of that demolition. That old thing must come down. And maybe it needs to be a clean, clear break so that that new thing can be rebuilt within you. All right? So there are things in your life that need to come down before you can build things up. What needs to come down? Folks, this is a contemplative message that we need to be examining every area of our life. Because he's coming back for the pure and spotless bride.
Yes.
The ending sometimes comes before the beginning. The ending comes first. Everybody say, the ending comes first.
The ending comes first.
Now it says there's a time to embrace. Embrace certain visions. Embrace strategies. Embrace dreams. Embrace the calling that he has given you on your life. But stop chasing and embracing those things which he didn't call you to. It might even be people. I'm not saying people of like mind and like kind, but if we're honest, sometimes we're spending way too much time with people that are not of like mind and like kind.
That's right.
Well, there's a time to refrain, and there's a time for an embrace. There's a time to search. There's a time to search, look for answers. And then there's a time to let go. Has the season that you're thinking about, has it passed? Because there are many things in our lives that have seasons, and sometimes that season has gone on. The first one was good, but it's not the best of what he has for you. He has something better. I was listening to this guy talk about this company. and when he said this, I laughed. He says it was a small company of 20 million profitable every year. And I'm like, all right, yeah, small company. Okay.
I'd like to see what his,
Yeah.
big company is.
Well, he talked about it being a small company, and he wanted to know what this guy does in his company to be prosperous. And the guy said, and I'm going to give some of the guy's quotes. He says, "Well, I look at all the activities the company is doing, and I looked at all those things." And he said, the life of the life of the company was only at about 20% of what we're doing right now, or what we were doing. So what we were involved in. So he called his manager team and he told them, by January 1st, I want all the other stuff in this company gone, all 80% gone. We need all our people and all our resources to focus on this 20%. I don't care if you give it away. I don't care if you lose money on it. We're going here and we must get rid of everything else. He said there will be pushback, but 80% of this company, this $20 million company, has to go. So the guy asked him, was the 80% not profitable? Oh, yes, yeah, it was profitable. All of it's profitable. It was very good. But that's not the best of what we needed for those resources.
Growing, yeah.
And think about that. It needs to go because it's not the best of where you're going. It's not the best that's going to help you attain and reach where God has called you to be.
That's right.
So many times in our lives, we're creating more activities and more things to be involved in and more things to love. And yet he's called us to be pruned. He's called us to take note of our life. Now, this company went on to be like a $1 billion company. So all this 80% pruning, was it bad? No. I mean, the numbers that I was listening to, this guy, like, oh my, I mean, I can't even imagine those numbers, but the guy was wise. Think about it. It takes somebody brave to say, get rid of 80% of everything.
Yep.
Ouch. Could we do that in our life? That would be really, really hard. Oh my goodness. Yes. It would take something, but we need to look at our life that way. Maybe it's all good. Maybe everything's great. But maybe there's some things that have got to go so the resources can be used to get this area to be the best it's supposed to be in your life, your marriage, your job, your kids, whatever it is. Now, there was another example given of this guy going out to dinner, and he and his wife were getting ready, and they were like, okay, let's go out. And finally they said, why are we going out with these people? Because you want to. He said, no, I thought you wanted to. We've been doing it for years. And they looked at it and they said, for a long time, they were of the same vision. They were doing and cared about the same things, but their paths separated. And now they cared about different things. And he said, it's not that they're bad people, but they are not going the same direction we are any longer. And he said, there's this couple and that couple that I would love to get to know better. And she was like, yeah, me too. Well, we need to maybe prune that relationship. I'm not saying cut it off forever, never talk to them. That's not what we're talking about. But maybe put it into different categories so that you can cause those other things to grow. We're born with time and energy. Those are two things that we have. We have Yah knows the number of our days. And we have this amount of time in our life to accomplish and do what he's called us to do. And that's it. No more. And then we have that energy. So everybody has maybe different amount of time. I don't know. But we need to look and make sure the resources in our life are going to the right place and doing the right thing. Pruning. Essential endings. When things are sick, do we cut them off? They're not getting well. Do we judge righteously? Do we look at things differently? Do we look at things through his eyes, or do we look at them through the eyes we want them to be? We have a habit of that as people. Well, I know something's going to change. I know it's going to get better. I know. But yet God said it's over because there's something better on the way. Cut it off. It's sick.
Something not right.
That behavior is sick. That attitude is sick. Cut it off, because we cannot judge life through the world's standards. We have to look through his eyes. You will get through the pain of cutting things off, because you are going to cut some good stuff off. Remember, there's healthy vines. There's healthy parts of the tree that need cut off. We got to stop holding on to things that he's told us to let go. But it's hard. It's hard. So I saw this. I want to talk about something I saw on Facebook this week. It was I read it to John, but I'm going to preface it by saying, maybe things in your marriage need pruned or in your relationships with others. And you'll say, yeah, I need to prune my spouse. That's not what I'm talking about, guys. I'm not talking about that at all. But maybe there's a necessary ending. Maybe there's an essential ending that needs to happen, even though it might be difficult. And you've been avoiding at all costs, that God wants to breathe new life into something. You don't want to get stuck. So you may think, well, it's my husband's problem. It's my wife's problem. If she wouldn't do this, if he wouldn't act like this, everything would be better. If she would give me more kudos, everything would be better. I mean, we can have a million excuses of why things would be better. We keep pointing the finger and we point the finger and we want to move on. And in reality, we've got to address the problem, prune that thing off and go. So I'm going to read you this story that I saw on Facebook. It is about marriage. It is about relationships like that. And because what needs pruned is the perspective and the way you see things and how you act. It says, a friend came to my house for coffee and we sat down and talked about life. After a while, I interrupted the conversation and said to him, I'm going to wash the dishes right now. I'll be right back. He looked at me and I told him what I was going to build a spaceship. So he said to me with admiration and a little stunt, glad you help your wife. I rarely help mine because when I do, she never thanks me. Last week, I washed the floor and she didn't even tell me thank you. So I sat back down with him again and I explained to him that I don't help my wife. Actually, my wife doesn't need help. She needs a partner. She needs a teammate. I'm her home partner. And due to that, all functions in this home are divided, which is not help with household chores. I don't help my wife clean the house because I live in this house and I can clean it too. I don't help my wife cook because I also want to eat and I need to cook too. I don't help her wash dishes after eating because I use the dishes too. I don't help my wife with kids because they are my kids too, and it's my duty to be their father. I don't help my wife wash and extend and fold and put away the laundry because it's mine and my kids too. I don't give a helping hand at home. I'm a part of it. Then with respect, I asked my friend, when was the last time his wife finished cleaning the house, doing laundry, changing the bed sheets, bathing the kids, cooking, organizing, etc.? Did he say, thank you? I mean, a real thank you, like, wow, baby, you're amazing. Does all this seem absurd? Does it sound weird to you when once in your life you cleaned the floor, you expected at least an excellence award with great glory? Why? Haven't you ever thought about that? Maybe because for you, macho culture taught you that everything is a woman's task. Maybe you've been taught that all this should be done without you having to move a finger. So praise her as you would like to be praised. Likewise, with the same intensity, hold her hand and behave like a true companion and assume your part. Don't behave like a guest who simply comes to eat, sleep, shower, and satisfy sexual needs. Feel at home in your home. Change in our society begins in our home, teaching our children the true sense of fellowship. That's a big story.
Yeah.
But sometimes the very things that need cut out of our life are the way we see our role in life, the way we act and respond and react to one another. Those things may need cut off because we're stuck in old traditions and old ways. We've been doing that already with the calendar and with other things in life of worship. We've been cutting the old off, getting things ready for the new. But maybe he wants to prepare us even more as individuals so that we're ready for the new. First off, to make sure that we're not taken away. Secondly, to make sure that we also take care of things that he's told us to take care of. So, how do we do that? Well, I'm going to give you a story about this family and a nanny. This lady was talking to this guy, this group, and she says, I need to fire my nanny. And so they talked strategy of how to do it to best. She liked her. There's nothing wrong, but it just wasn't right anymore. And she's a big executive powerhouse woman. So she's a woman that has control and knows how to speak and has a lot of confidence in areas of her life. But she's like, I can't fire the nanny. So she reported in the next week, and they were like, "Did you fire her?" She said, "No, couldn't do it." So this went on for weeks, and finally the group said, "Man, if you don't take care of this, you're cut out of the group." So she left. She talked to her husband. She came back the next week. They said, are you firing your nanny? And she said, "No, I made my husband do it." But when she came home, she said, "I couldn't be in the house at the same time. My husband hired a guy to fire the nanny." So neither of them could do the necessary ending that needed to happen. How many times do we want somebody else to do what he's called us to do? "I can't do it. I can't do it. John, you do it for me." Well, let's be honest. No, there are some things that I say, "John, do it for me." And there's a lot of things he says, "Sandy, do it for me." Like the alarm. Yeah, I don't like alarms.
Such a bad.
But what things in our life are we relying somebody? We're wanting somebody else to cut them off. You know what? I've heard this too. I'm like, y'all, if it's supposed to be gone in my life, y'all needs to do it. Well, he's tried, but he's also told you to step up to the plate. He's given you the ability. He's given you the wisdom to step up and take those things out yourself. He's told you how to behave. He's told you to cling to his word. He's told you to follow his instruction. So follow it. What's the excuse? Why do we keep doing what we're not supposed to do? Why do we keep clinging and holding on to things that should no longer be there? Yes, it hurts. Yes, it's painful. It looks healthy, but it's got to go. I'm going back to that Hebrew word zamar, which does mean to prune, but it also means song. Zamar 2167. It means to sing and to praise and to make music, as well as prune. So you think about a heart being plucked, pruned, plucked to make music. So here's that word, that zamar, that's spelled with a Zion and a Mem and a Resh, and the Zion equals 7, and the Mem equals 40, and the Resh equals 200. And there's another word that means has the same value of 247, and that's mazachak, which means to refine. Does your life need refined? Because I think it's interesting that both this word zamar, which means to prune or song, is to refine. So maybe there's a song that needs to come for our lips. There's a praise. There's a bit of worship that needs to come along the pruning process, that they need to be connected together as he's refining us and as we step into the fire to be refined. Yay! Maybe that's what needs to happen, because aren't we supposed to be praising him 24/7, living a life of worship? That root of that word is zakak, which means to purify. So we have this idea of refining and purifying. When we sing or we listen to zamar, when we listen to the song, or when we're pruning, it should be a song of worship and praise. Yeah, I've got this. I'm going to give you glory even though it hurts. I'm going to praise you even though it's painful. I'm going to trust you and give you praise as I go along the path, because that thing is gone and I wanted to hold on to it. But Father, you have something better that's coming along the way. So I'm going to step into what you've called me to be and what you've called me to do. I'm going to willingly take out those things that should not be, those behaviors, those attitudes, those things in my life. I'm going to cut them off. I'm going to cut those activities, all those other things in my life that shouldn't be there, because I want to reach and be the person that you call me to be. I want to fulfill your role. I want to fulfill the purposes. I want to be the best Sandy, the best Pastor Sandy Craig that I can be. Is that your desire today, to be who you're called to be? Or do you want to keep holding on to those ways and the behaviors and those things in your life that should be gone? So that at one point, it might even draw you away where you'll have to be taken out and put in the fire. Or do you want to have him prune you, but along the way, listen to him, because his pruning sometimes is, do this, cut it off. Every branch in me that bears fruit, he prunes, so it will be more fruitful. It's painful. There's freedom that comes with pruning.
Yes.
I know I got rid of a whole bunch of just things out of my house years ago. And I remember it was hard to let go. Well, memories and things, but then to just get rid of it, it was like, sometimes the enemy tries to convince us that holding on to the old, holding on to the stuff, holding on to the attitude, holding on to this idea, to the old vision and old dreams is where we need to be, because he's so deceived us that we don't see clearly when Yah has a brand new dream and a brand new vision, or is restoring an old one because you've lost hold of it. Cut off, taken away, or pruned. Which is it? It's healthy, prune it if it's not the best.
Yeah.
It's time that we be the best he's called us to be.
Yes, Lord.
So with a song in our mouth and praise on our lips, we prune and we allow him to prune us so that every essential ending comes because there's a new beginning
Yes.
on its way. Father, we come before you and we thank you and we praise you and we exalt your holy name. Father, we ask that you would show us things in our life, things personally and things outside of us personally that need to leave our lives, that need to end, that need an essential end. But Father, give us vision so that we do not just cut things out that shouldn't we get out. Give us new vision or restored vision.
Yes.
Give us restored dreams or new dreams, whatever it is, Father. Let us not hold on to the sickly old thing, to that good thing that's good, but it's not the best. The dead things. Let us be willing, make us willing to cut those things off so that we can be who we're supposed to be, so that we can fulfill the purposes for which you've called us.
Yes, Lord.
Father, let us no longer cling to those things that you've called us to let go of, but let's embrace your truth. Let us think and speak along your way, along your path. Father, we desire to be a spotless bride. We desire to be a growing, fruitful bride. We desire to be the people you've called us to be and nothing less than that. So Father, make us willing to give those things up. Are we ready to be made willing? Father, we are. Father, so that we can step in to the glory, step in to what you called us to be. Even though it's painful, Father, let us be willing to stop the attitudes and the actions and the lack of action, whatever it is, so that we can be who you called us to be. Father, let us prune all areas of our life. We give it all to you in the mighty name of Yeshua. Amen.
Amen.